Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz Young, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we explore the systems, skills, and strategies that help you build a business that works for you, not the other way around. In today's episode, we're talking about something that doesn't get said enough in the business world. Success shouldn't come at the cost of your health, your family, or your freedom. Because if business is sucking the life out of you, it's time to build a different one. And that's exactly where today's guest comes in. Tamryn Dicks is the founder of Farside Solutions, Human Edge Resourcing, and Farside Accounting, 3 businesses that are 100% digital, 100% remote, and rooted in a single mission to help people build businesses that don't break them. An accountant by profession and a burnout prevention coach by calling, Tamryn blends financial strategy, operational efficiency, and human-first leadership to help business owners set themselves up for long-term success without the burnout. She works with business owners to use data, tech, and remote team structures to create more freedom, flexibility, and impact while still being able to be profitable and sustainable. In this episode, we're talking about why burnout is so common in the entrepreneurial world and how to recognize the early signs and what it really takes to build a business that supports your life, not consumes it. So let's get into it. Hi, Tamryn.
Hi, Sooz. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the podcast today. So what I like to do, as you know, for every episode, I like the guests to introduce themselves. Now, you have 3 businesses. So tell us, how did you get to the point of not only setting up just your first business, but moving into 3, and what burnout happened as part of that process?
Yes, with pleasure. Although I have to start by saying I have 3 small businesses. I don't have a global empire. Yes, it sounds so impressive in that intro. Always, whenever I listen to your podcast, you introduce everyone. They always sound amazing.
That's why I have these people on, because, and yourselves included in that, because it's our own little empires that we're building, isn't it? And I think all of those journeys are super important to share for people. So tell us, how did you get into your own little empire, Tamryn?
So I started with Farside Accounting because I was an accountant, and I think what most business owners do is I was good at what I did, so I figured I wanted to do it for myself. And I thought that being good at accounting meant I'd be good at running an accounting company because I'm just doing it for lots of people, but without a boss. And I was wrong because being a business owner is its own skill set. It has a whole range of jobs you didn't even realize existed. Something that I learned or realized, I should say, much, much later was, when you're employed, all you need to do to succeed is to focus on your job, get really good at what you do, and work hard. And then if you've got a good employer and you're in a good structure, you will progress along the career path and earn more money and get your accolades and find success. So we as professionals, we take that mindset out into business ownership. And we go, okay, all I have to do is become really good at my job and to work really hard. And that's what I did. And then in addition to that, I bought into, it was very popular at the time, this idea of hustling. You've got to keep pushing, you got to keep innovating, you got to keep growing. If you're standing still, you're going backwards. That's it's still popular, but it was very popular around the time that I started a business. So that's what I did. I just kept pushing and hustling and, trying to grow this business, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't realize I had to be marketing and sales and accounting and client delivery and client support. And I just did it all. And then even at the point where I did get a bit busy enough that I thought I could hire someone. I did it wrong, and then that went badly. And then I developed the mindset that, and this is a popular one. Oh, if I want something done properly, I've got to just do it myself. And I don't want to be responsible for a team. I hear that a lot. I don't want to be an employee. I don't want to be responsible for people, and fully get it because I was there. So I just kept pushing by myself, and all I did was push myself into burnout. But then burnout wasn't really well known at the time. So I didn't know that's what I was going through. I thought it was just stress, just the stress of building a business. It is hard. It's hard to build a business. There is stress involved. There's lots of stress involved. And I just thought what I was feeling was normal when I was getting exceptionally tired, when my immune system started to take strain. Even when I started to gain weight, I didn't realize that that wasn't normal in terms of stress. That was chronic stress that was lasting way too long. And I just kept pushing. And so I was actually going through my second round of burnout, and I had gone into a phase called escapism, which obviously didn't know existed at the time. Now I know it exists. So you've completely lost your passion for what you do. Well, you've lost your passion for just about everything at this point. And as a result, you begin to fantasize about other things. You think, you start imagining that your life would be better if you were doing something completely different. And I was in that phase when this idea came along with a friend of mine, where we were chatting about something that I am passionate about. Organic food and regenerative farming is something that I think is important. So we were chatting about that and got all excited and decided what's wrong with me is that I'm in the wrong industry. It's not the business. It's not the way I'm running the business. It's the fact that I'm trying to do the wrong thing. And so I start a new business with this friend. And it did do well, and we had fun. It was called the Munching Mongoose, and we delivered organic food to people in the city where he lived. And we even won an award, and it was very exciting. But in the background of all the excitement, I was now responsible for 100% of Farsight accounting and 50% of the Munching Mongoose. And I hadn't reduced my stress levels at all. I had quadrupled them and quadrupled my duties. That burnout just steadily got, as soon as the shine of the excitement wore off, because it is very exciting to start something new. But as soon as that excitement began to become mundane, that burnout just crept right back in. And eventually, also because I was juggling these two businesses and doing everything wrong, I ended up working 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping properly. It just got completely out of hand. And then one day I sat down to work and I burst into tears, and I couldn't stop crying for about 2 weeks. If I just thought about work, I started crying, which is unusual for me. I don't cry easily. So it freaked me out quite a lot. And I realized that, I'm doing things wrong. I can't continue the way I'm doing. I'm going to collapse. I mean, I pretty much had almost collapsed at that point. At the point that I finally started to take stock of where I was, my immune system had failed. My hormones were out of balance. My emotional health was shot. My physical health was shot. I'd gained weight. I had headaches and stomach complaints and all sorts of things that I'd never had before. I mean, prior to all of this, my husband used to call me Typhoid Tamryn, after Typhoid Mary, because I would mix with people who were sick, and then I'd be fine. But then, of course, I was carrying the bug, and other people would get sick, but I would never get sick. And now I was at a point where if you sneezed in my vicinity, I was going to get whatever you were carrying. So yeah, I had to just rethink everything, really. And I had to pause. And I can't even say it was conscious. I just knew that I couldn't continue as it was. And I just stopped. I even considered selling my accounting business. I tried. I actually went to a business broker and discovered that 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears are worth nothing if you don't build a proper business. If that business is reliant on you working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can't sell it. It's not going to be worth anything, which was even more depressing. But that made me make my decision. I was like, I'm a good accountant, so I'm going to step back from the organic food business, because my friend was doing an amazing job with that business and he was really passionate. So I was like, you take it, you run. I'm stepping back. I'm going to go back to, I might not feel passionate about it, but I know I'm good at it. So I went back to accounting and I focused on just rebuilding that. And it coincided with the change in my personal life as well. My husband had also been going through burnout, and our home rental lease had come to an end. So we decided, instead of renewing, we were going to just cancel and go on the road. We literally went nomadic we said it was going to be for 6 months. It ended up being 7 years because it's really fun. And that nomadic life actually helped me heal in all sorts of ways that I now share in my burnout talks and programs and things. The habits I learned, which can be applied even if you're living in a nice stable house in a city. They helped me heal, and it helped me rebuild from the ground up. And I managed to build Farsight Accounting into an actual business that ran without me, and I could breathe, I could have space, I could be me again. And when I had that time, when I had that space to be me again, I could pay attention to my clients. When I paid attention to my clients, I realized they're going through the same thing. They're all done the same thing. They've started a business because they're good at something. They didn't know how to be a business owner. They pushed and they pushed and they pushed, and they're overwhelmed and they're overworked and they're underpaid. And it's not just me. It's a real and true problem that small business owners face. And so I started teaching what I knew, and that's how Farsight Solutions was born. So that is my coaching and mentoring business, and that's the one I'm most passionate about at the moment. Although I love my little accounting company. I'm very proud of my team. My heart lies with the coaching and the mentoring. And then, yes, I have a third one, human edge resourcing. That was essentially a shiny object that worked out. So, as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to chase the shiny things. We do have a tendency to have new ideas and get distracted. It's something we've got to try balance. I was lucky with this one. It did work, but it worked because it does align with everything else I'm doing. So Human Edge is a offshoring solutions provider to accounting firms in the UK. And because I'm an accountant, I know the struggles they face. Because I'm a small business owner, I know the struggles they face. I've had to recruit my own staff, and all my businesses run remote and digital. So I am able to help other firms set up remote correctly and make it work, because it gets a bad rep, remote work, because it doesn't always work, but it doesn't work because it wasn't set up right. So that's how I ended up with 3, and that's why they're all remote. And yeah, that's where I am now.
I mean, I don't even know where to start asking you questions because there's so much in that. But firstly, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for coming on and talking about this really important thing that isn't spoken about enough, especially for business leaders. I think it's more probably documented within the employee world, of where you're just working so hard for somebody else, and then you go into burnout and it has mental health. You take that time away from work, and then you can come back into your role, or otherwise it's seen as redundancy, usually within especially large corporates. But when it's your own business, there's no other choice except you taking on that role and really being the one person that does everything in your job. So let's just go and break out parts of what you've said and explain it a little bit more for people. So let's go into some fundamental signs of what burnout looks like for somebody that's in a business leader role, whether it's your own business or running somebody else's business. What does that look like?
That's a good question, because what was my problem, is that I didn't recognize what I was going through. I didn't know what this was. And the reason for that is burnout has three causes. So it's having too much responsibility. So not necessarily work. It's responsibility, something that you personally are responsible for. And I think that's why business owners battle so much, is because you're responsible for the whole business and the workload and your personal life. So there is a lot that you're carrying. There's a lot of responsibility. And if you do your job well and the business grows, it will get to a point where it's too much for you. So we definitely get to a point of too much responsibility. And then normally it coincides with the second cause of burnout, which is too few resources. So and a resource could be time, it could be money, it could be people, but you don't have what you need to meet these responsibilities, which then brings in this third cause of burnout, which is chronic stress. Because stress can be a good thing. Stress, I know it gets a bad rap, but it pushes us to perform. That's what stress does. When you've got a deadline that's looming, or you've got a difficult situation, and you get that little anxiety, that little adrenaline rush, it will help you to meet that deadline, to do a good job, to achieve something. So stress in small doses is very good for us. The problem with burnout is that stress doesn't come in small doses. It's coming from so many sources that it just starts to build and it becomes sustained. It just sits. So now you've got too much responsibility. You don't have the resources to sort this responsibility. And then you're sitting with this sustained chronic stress. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And it's that chronic stress that affects our health in a burnout situation. And the biggest difficulty with that is we're used to stress. We spend our entire lives experiencing stress at some point for different things. So when it starts to become sustained, you don't really think about the fact that it's not normal. We're used to carrying stress. We're used to being anxious about something, worrying about something, pushing through a stressful situation. And as business owners, there's lots of them, especially when you're in startup phase, there's a lot of stress. So we just push and and then you end up in the survival mode where you just accept that this is normal, and it's not. And the biggest difference in recognizing, is this burnout or is it just the stress of building a business, is I read a article once, so this is not my definition, but it always just sat with me, is stress is a feeling of too much work, too much responsibility. Oh, this is too much for me. And then burnout is a feeling of not enough. So what that is there's lots to do, but there's nothing left in me to do it. It's not enough for me to get this done. I don't have anything left. And that, I think, is a really nice correlation of the two in terms of too much and not enough, in terms of feeling, where you can tell where you are. If it's just a case of something that you know that if this thing ends, or if I can remove myself from this situation, that's stress. So if it's a stressful project, when the project comes to an end, you feel better. You go back to your normal life, your normal routines. If it's a stressful client, then again, if it ends, or if you cancel the contract and you go back to normal clients, you're fine. But that's if even at work, for employees, if it's a stressful job and you go on holiday, you're going to feel better because the source of your stress is not with you. Whereas burnout pervades that sense of not enough. It seeps into you, like it feels like it's seeped into your bones. And no matter what you do, no matter where you are, even if you do manage to take a weekend off, which most business owners don't do, you're going to feel that burnout pulling you down, making you feel empty. And that's why we lose our passion. It's why we start to give up. It's why we start to imagine ourselves and doing other things. It's that feeling of pervasive emptiness is burnout.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to what you're saying there, and I'm sure most people that are listening or watching this can resonate with some or all of what or recognize some of those things that you've mentioned as part of that. So I take it that it's really down to the fundamentals of how your business is set up then to kind of manage what this looks like. What do you think the first step is then, really, to, after recognizing that you're maybe in burnout stage, what's next? What do you do?
Well, to be honest, what I start with people is them, because so the burnout has the three causes: too much responsibility, too few resources, sustained chronic stress. And it's those three together that are causing the burnout. So if you can deal with those three causes, you can deal with the burnout. But out of those three, the one that's the most dangerous to you is the sustained chronic stress. That is the one that's messing up your endocrine system. It's affecting your immune system. It's affecting your physicality. It's probably messing up your human relationships as well. Because I know for myself, I got ridiculously snappy and irritable with people that I loved, doing things that I previously loved. People asking me if I wanted to go out and have fun like I normally would have was irritating me. It's left alone. So that's what's ruining your life right now, is that sustained chronic stress. So that's where I start. If you're actually in burnout, we start with you. And I actually have steps to start fixing your physical health and your personal routine, rather than even thinking about the business. Because to be honest, you're not in a state to start doing new things in your business. When you've reached the point of burnout, you don't have it in you to now start creating structure in the business that caused the burnout in the first place. That's more work. That's more responsibility. It's necessary, but you just don't have it in you. You have to heal first. So if you realize that you're burning out, if you're starting to feel that pervasive emptiness, I always say you can't actually start by fixing the business. because although there are things that you can improve in the business that will help you, if you reach the point of burnout, you actually don't have it in you to start working on the business. You don't have it in you to start doing more, to start fixing something, to start creating structure. It's not there. So you really need to start with you, because like I said earlier, there's 3 causes of burnout. There's the overwork, no resources, and the sustained chronic stress. But the one that's affecting you the most is the sustained chronic stress. That is the one that is worst for you personally, and it's the one that's worst for your health.
As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs.
That is the one that's messing up your endocrine system and your hormones and your immune system, and everything is out of whack because of the sustained chronic stress. So that's actually what you need to get under control first before you can start thinking about what you want to fix in your business. The first thing I recommend to people is more sunshine, which is not easy in the Northern Hemisphere, I know, and especially I think when we're recording this, you're going into winter, which is going to make it even harder. But sunshine is the most amazing natural remedy for stress and depression and sleep, which is also something that gets badly affected by burnout. So 15 minutes of sunshine per day can help improve your mood, it helps improve your thinking, and it helps improve your sleep. So that one thing, just I say to people, if you can, if you're lucky enough to be in an area where it's possible, do things like take your phone calls outside. If you're going to phone someone or you're going to answer the phone, get up, go outside, because you'll get your 15 minutes a day and you get a bit of movement in as well, which is also really good for you. So just go walk around a garden or walk up and down a patio and try and get sunshine. And that's the first thing I recommend. Obviously, it's not enough on its own, but it really is a start towards getting yourself right again. And sleep is probably the most important thing to focus on, because once you've reached the point of burnout, I'm certain your sleep is almost non-existent. You're not going to be getting enough. It's not, the quality of your sleep is not going to be good enough. You're going to be constantly tired all the time. And sleep is one of our most underrated benefits in life. We need it. Your body uses sleep to heal itself. It heals the rest of you, but also your brain. Everything is fixed while you're sleeping. That's why we need sleep. So if you're not sleeping, then you're not healing. You're not getting better every day after using all your energy, after using all those resources. And we use a lot of resources to think. We always associate energy burn with exercise because it's the most obvious example, is that you go to the gym, you burn off calories. We make that physical connection because it's easy to see. But we burn a massive amount of calories working hard. Your brain needs fuel just as much as your muscles do. So if you're constantly making decisions and constantly trying to build something, if you're not sleeping, you've got a problem. And the next thing that's going to affect that is what you're eating. Because again, you're burning fuel. So you need fuel, proper fuel, to be able to function correctly. And I know with myself, by the time I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, I was not eating properly because I didn't have time for it. So it was takeout or processed food or quick and easy, because I just didn't have time to think about what I was eating. And the irony of that was that that's while I was running an organic food delivery business because I actually believe in food. It doesn't have to be organic certified or anything ridiculous like that, but I really do believe that the more natural your food is, the more the closest it is to its original form, the better it is for you, because we're all part of this world and we're made of the same things. And if you can eat food that's natural, you're getting the things that you need from it. So yeah, I think that's my first, that was 3 things, but that's my first step, is to say to someone, start looking after you before you can worry about a business.
Such important things to recognize as a business owner. And here's me with shiny object syndrome going, oh, let's have every business in the Northern Hemisphere have satellites in their meeting rooms so that they're getting the vitamin D, or they're getting their 15 minutes of sun whenever they're on any calls. So again, it's a great idea, right?
It is a great idea, and it's a good point, is if you can't get sunshine, go find a salon that does red light therapy or pink light therapy, because those two will also give you what you need. And you can go lie on those, under those lights. I think you can actually lie on it like a sunbed, and the red light, you lie underneath it. But either one of those will also give you what you're missing from your sunshine.
I mean, seasonal affective disorder, the SAD syndrome, is really, really big, especially here in Scotland, and vitamin D deficiency. I know that when I was at Apple, we had artificial light that was supposed to reflect normal sunlight. But I know people that worked there that after working there for so long, they ended up knocking into things and breaking their bones. And it's because they were so vitamin D deficient. That their bones were breaking because they were in an environment that was so detrimental towards their health under very stressful circumstances, being at a large tech company, as you can imagine. So you can imagine even just being an employee of a company like that, but as a business owner, you've got so much more on top of it as well. But then you mentioned as well around the whole concept of sleep. So you've got too much work to do, not enough sleep, you're not eating effectively, so you're drinking more caffeine to keep yourself awake. So is that a bit of a vicious cycle of not being able to manage your personal aspects of your life to run a business because you're kind of doing it all? So does it become like this vicious cycle for people that they can't kind of see a way out of it?
Absolutely. And I actually characterize it as a vicious spiral, because it starts here in this little circle, but it's just going to get bigger and bigger because you're not doing anything to fix it. You can't. You feel like you can't. And I mean, I've been there. And I think this is something that people who haven't tried to run a small business, they don't quite get. You really do have too much. This is not a case of it being in your head, or you're not overblowing your responsibilities. You're not imagining things that you have to do. You're not wrong about the workload or the importance of those things. Everything is important. You've got deadlines. You've got clients. If you let down, and this is the joke of working for yourself. I always say this to people: is you left one boss for 1,000, because now every client is far worse than a boss. If you don't keep that client happy, you lose their business, but you'll probably lose future business, because the sad thing about people is happy clients generally won't say anything until you ask them to. But unhappy clients will go and tell everyone.
They will as well. They really will.
So it's a real, it
you
is
don't
a
want that as a
real
business
concern.
either.
It's a real concern. You are too busy. That it's not something that's in your head, and it is so difficult. And it was so articulate. It is normal for you in that situation to put yourself last, because you've got all these responsibilities, and you started this business, and now it's hanging over your head. It's also a good chance that there were a lot of people in your life that told you not to start this business or thought you were crazy. And if you're anything like me, then your automatic response is that you're going to prove them wrong. Okay.
Yes. Well, that's kind of why a lot of people set up their business, isn't it? Is to kind of get away from the bad boss as well. They've left the bad boss to be their own boss, to then have to manage not only themselves, but to get other people on board that they then manage as well. So yeah, it's difficult, right?
And it's a real struggle. It's not in your head. It's not actually an easy fix for it either. I mean, I know obviously people, when I say, I beat burnout, they're all like, how? But it's slow. That's the worst part about it. That's why I'm so passionate about speaking about it to people who started their businesses as well, because I don't want you to get there. I want to prevent the burnout if possible, because to get back out of it is much harder. It's much harder to heal from burnout than to go through burnout. Getting into burnout is easy. Coming out of it is difficult. But that for me, looking after yourself physically, and the most completely incongruent way to do it is to start taking time off. And you don't, and it's so hard because you don't think you can. And when we just talked about the fact that it's real. This workload is real. Those deadlines are real. There are things that you're not making up. You can't let these people down. But you've also got to recognize that, especially in startup phase, and most business owners sort of get almost stuck in startup phase even when they're growing. So even when you've reached a point of growth where you should actually now be in the building phase, we get stuck in a survival situation where we're still thinking like a startup, and we're still saying yes to everybody, and we're still trying to do everything ourselves, and we're still trying to define who we are. And when you're there, you thought of taking time off. You just think you can't do this. But at the same time, you've got to recognize that you are the business. If you're in startup phase, you are the business. It's your energy, it's your idea, it's your passion. And if you collapse, you're going to take it down with you. I mean, I nearly did. If I hadn't had a partner in the one business, that would have been gone. And I very, very nearly collapsed my accounting business because I just didn't have it in me to keep going. It was so close to just being, well, shut down and go get a job. I think the only reason I didn't is because I'm stubborn.
I can totally recognize with that as well. It's like, I am not giving in. This has to work. I've said I'm going to do it, so it has to work, right?
And now that I've lost my health, and I've lost my happiness, and I've ruined my personal relationships, now it's gonna work. So yeah, it's and I think that's the thing. It's recognizing that you've got to look after yourself. You are the company's asset. And in fact, I was thinking about this the other day, and I realized this is a cycle we don't recognize. Is in the beginning of starting a business, you are the company's biggest asset. So you are the source of skill, you're the source of knowledge, you're the source of energy, and you're the source of money because you're doing the work that brings the cash in. So you've got to look after yourself the same way you would look after a computer or a vehicle or a piece of machinery that's got to last for 5-10 years in that business to keep it going. You've got to have that same mindset of looking after yourself, because if you do and you manage to get this business now to the point where it's growing, then it becomes your biggest asset. So it's actually a cycle that feeds itself. And that's what you want. You opened the business because you wanted it to be an asset. You wanted freedom. You wanted space. You wanted to be your own boss. You wanted something in your life that you felt was missing. Now it's consumed your life. So you've got to find a balance between recognizing right now I'm the asset. And if I behave like I'm the asset, then in 5 to 10 years' time, the business will be the asset. It's hard. And it's hard to recognize that being the asset means that you've got to stop work at a decent time every day so that you can go get some sleep. And you've got to take at least one day off per week. I don't push for a 2-day weekend for everyone. I actually quite enjoy working on a Sunday, to be honest, because it's quiet and no one bugs me. I might take another day off in the week, but I like working on Sunday.
I'm like as well. Sunday afternoons are like everybody's chilled. I get a break. I can get some concentrated work done, and I can turn it off when I need. I've got nobody at me at any deadlines or anything I need to do. It's stuff
like
that
a bank
I can
holiday.
Focus on.
I love working on a bank holiday.
What's that? I don't know what that is. That's like business owners tend to not know what a is. They have to work
the day
through it, right?
when no one else is bugging you. That's the work
Yeah,
day.
that's
No
right.
one else is bugging you. That's the bank holiday.
Okay, so we've talked about like recognizing the signs of burnout. We've talked about some starting things of what to do when you're in burnout stage. So that is really focusing on yourself. So how do we then structure the business in a way to help support that process of not getting into burnout? Because as we know, we are our biggest asset. I like to talk to people about like you've got to behave like you're also the employee of your business as well, not just the employer. So what would you do as a business? What would you expect a staff member to do if you want to achieve in your business in the same way? So yeah, what do we do as a business structure then? What's the next step after that?
So I always ask a business owner, if you think of your business as a building, because I love to, there's so many good analogies between
Yeah,
building and business.
I love
So
an
I use them a
analogy.
lot. You need foundations and all, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I say, if you think of your building, a business as a building, tell me what's holding your roof up. Because 9 times out of 10, it's you.
That's a good thought.
9 times out of 10, it's you holding the entire weight of that roof by yourself. And if you then step away, that building collapses. And that's the problem. So what you've created in that case isn't a business, it's self-employment. And for some people that works. So that's it, the first, so what I talk about there with the holding the roof up is pillars. I'm like, you got to put in pillars so that now you can walk in and out of that building and it stays upright. That's what we're aiming to do. And the first pillar I always tell people to build is purpose. You've got to really understand, and I think this is what happened with me. And I think because I reached such a crash and burn moment, that it does make you question why you're doing something. And I try and get people to do this before they crash and burn. Is why are you doing this? Because there's a reason you started this business, and it could be as simple as money, and that's fine. When you lost your job and you needed income, and so you started this, that's fine. But you need to know. You need to know why, and you need to know what's important to you. You need to know where you want to be in the future. Because if you know where you want to be in the future, you can picture how this business fits into that future and then what it needs to look like to make that future happen. And if you know your values and what's important to you, then you can build something that's aligned to you. Because that's also very important. If you're working out of alignment with who you are, and I battled with this a lot. Actually, this is a good example is I was a good accountant, and a large portion of what I do still is help people make more money. Accounting is all about what's happening with your money. I was not raised to value money at all. I'm not going to fight if there's money in my bank account. Very happy, but it's not my driving force. Money is not a driving force. So when I was going through my burnout, I actually hated the fact that my business was about making people money. I couldn't align with that. What I align with now is that if I'm helping you make money and keep money and pay your bills, what I've actually done is helped you build freedom. And freedom is something I value highly. That is my main, biggest value in my life is freedom. So now I align with what I do in the accounting business, in my mentoring business, in our offshoring business. The purpose is to create freedom. And I do that. I want that for my employees as well. And you're talking about what would you do for your employees? I don't want my employees burning out. I don't want them tied to their desks. I don't want them to feel that their job is a slog that they do to get paid. I want them to love what they do, and I want them to be paid well, and I want them to be able to live their lives in between. So that's my motivating, that's my purpose. So you need to know that, and then you know how to rebuild this business to align with you. So it's the most important pillar to start with, that purpose. And the thing with it is that you have to ask yourself more than once, because your purpose changes. When you started the business, like I said, you could have lost your job. So now your purpose is just to restore the income you earned as an employee. That was your motivating factor for starting this business. But when you reach the point where you've replaced your income, your motivation will change, because, well, either you'll be happy and you can stay in that place, and then that's normally where self-employment works for someone. But now maybe you're thinking, well, actually, I've got small kids that I want to spend more time with. So now I want to have this income, but only work 3 days a week. It's a different motivation. And then when the kids go to high school, then the motivation can be, well, actually, I need to put them through university. So now I need to build up a university fund. So your motivation is going to change. But if you know what it is and you know how to make the business fit into your life, then you will keep rebuilding the right structure to make that happen. So that's why I think the purpose is the place to start. The other pillars that so process, because the way you do something is important. That was I've got 3 mindset shifts that I say I had to go through. The first was that I'm the company's biggest asset. So I have to look after me or the company collapses. That was the first shift in thinking that I had to accept, was that my time off was actually a business necessity. It wasn't selfish. It actually built the business if I had time off. That was the first shift. The second one was the realization that working hard is completely pointless if I'm working the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a problem with working hard. I could work hours, but then I want to know that those hours produce something. And that's where I am now. Whereas before I was just like, work, head down, get it done. I never thought about what it was achieving other than ticking off a deadline. Now I've got to work in such a way that I can tick off the deadlines and build the business and create freedom and help my clients and help my staff. It's a different thing entirely, and it depends on how I'm working. So process is really important. And my third shift in thinking was when I finally accepted that I couldn't do it alone, that it's not a business if it's me. So that's where the third pillar is people. You're to build your people pillar, which I must say, when I teach the people pillar, it's not just about a team, although the team is really, really important because you can't do it alone. Your people pillar involves your clients. So it's understanding what type of person you want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
It understands who you serve best. Because if you're going to be, especially if you're in a service business, you're going to make money by providing a good outcome to people. So you need to know who you want to provide that outcome for. Who do you actually want to work with? Because that makes you happy. But also, what type of person do you get the best outcome for? Because that's going to make them happy and that's going to make you a good business. So you need to understand that. That's part of your people pillar. You need to understand what type of suppliers you need in your business. You need people that you align with, that you can work with, because you're going to be dealing with them in terms of if they're contractors or if you buy something on a regular basis. Do you align with these people? Do you get on with these people? That's important. And then, of course, your actual team, which you don't have to hire. I'm a big one for using outsource, contractors, all sorts of ways that you can build a team without actually having employees. But you need a team. You cannot do things alone. So you've got to know your business, because every business is different as well in terms of what will work as a contractor or where you do need to have someone in your office who's for you. So that's why this starts with purpose, starts with understanding that big picture before you can start building these other pillars. And the fourth aspect of people is a support network, because again, you can't do this alone. And I mean, no matter how supportive your friends and family are, and unfortunately some friends and family are not supportive, mainly because they don't understand. If someone has not built a business before, they do not understand your drive to build one, and they do not understand what you're going through while you build one. So some friends and family are not supportive because all they see is the change in you from the perspective that you're not maybe spending as much time with them, or you're more anxious than you were before, you're more worried than you were before. So they're not going to be supportive because they think you've done the wrong thing. Some friends and family are supportive, they are cheering you on, but they still don't understand because they've never done it before. So you need a support network who does understand, and the best place you're going to find that is in other business owners. So, and that's really what networking is for. And I know we all join networking groups to get more clients, and 9 times out of 10 it fails for us because that's why we joined. We joined to get clients, but you should be trying to build a network of people who understand you. So that's your people pillar. And the fourth one is performance, because I'm an accountant and we have to make sure that the company is actually performing. But that's probably the least important, saying in inverted commas, because obviously it's not a business if it doesn't have profit and it doesn't have cash and it's not actually performing for you. You need a business to perform. But it will if your other three pillars are built. So,
There's so much going on in my head to ask multiple questions that I probably need to take away from this podcast and not talk about on this podcast with you, Tamryn, because it's not about me, it's about everyone else that's listening. So let's go into some of this system and processes point of view as well, because I want to talk about it a little bit from a tech perspective as well, with it being the Digital Dominators podcast. So let's go on into that tech perspective of systems. So what are some things that business owners can look at to get set up that is really simple for them? That what would you recommend? And especially when you're coming at it from an accounting and a processing point of view as well. So there's some real structure that's required. So I really want to hear what your thoughts are around that system and processes when it comes to tech and how that works for alleviating the burnout or helping to solve that problem.
yeah, well, there's two areas where I think tech has probably both accelerated our burnout, but also makes it a lot easier to deal with. The concept, so tech, I think the problem with tech in the modern world is this feeling of, because we can be available all the time, we think we must be available all the time. So I think that's one of the issues, is that we are on 24/7 instead of drawing a line, just because. And I often say to people, if we roll back time 20 years, you didn't have a smartphone. Okay, we even had mobile phones, and let's roll back. Oh, so I'll give away my age. Let's roll back time 30 years, when my dad was working in an office. And if I wanted to get hold of him, I had to phone his landline, and his secretary would answer. And if he was in the office and if he wasn't in a meeting, I'd be put through. But if he was out or if he was busy, he would leave a message and he would phone me back later on. And that was normal business. And quite frankly, it should still be normal business. Just because your cell phone is available, it makes you available 24/7, does not mean you have to be available 24/7. I might be in a meeting when you phone on my cell phone, and I might not actually be near the phone, because I tend to put it away from me these days, because that's something I would say is a good way to deal with this overload of information that we get all the time. So that's not actually answering your question. That's a sideline. But I'd say that's part of tech causing a problem. And I think you need to actually intentionally stop and consider the tech to turn it around and make sure that it helps you fix the problem instead. So, and from that perspective, one of the best things that software does for us is give us the ability to monitor things without being there. And I've built 3 completely remote businesses, 100% online remote working businesses. And I do that because we've got tech that helps me know what everyone is doing. Not at every second of the day, they're in control of their day, but I know how far each job is. I know who's doing what. I know if they're close to deadline or if they're far from deadline. They have ways of telling me if they're having a problem so that we can make a plan. That's tech that enables that. So I'd say one of the best things you can do for a small business is set up an electronic ecosystem, a digital ecosystem that helps you see your business from anywhere. And that part of that would be an accounting program, something like Xero or QuickBooks Online, where you're getting your numbers, because numbers are really important. If you don't understand your numbers, get hold of your accountant now and set up a meeting to start discussing I don't know how to read my statements, because using numbers helps you make good decisions. And if you're using something like cloud software, you get those numbers immediately accurate, nearly accurate, because it does require a little bit of fixing, but you've got 80% accuracy now by using cloud equipment. By using something like, we use Asana I use Asana to manage my practice, which is unusual because there's practice management software out there, but I like Asana. And Asana gives me an overview of everything in my business. I know who's doing what. I know who's allocated to a client. We know how far work is. We know whether a client is the reason that something is behind, or are we the reason that something is behind. I see all of that in one view using tech. And that takes a load off my mind. What I also love about Asana is that when I get shiny object syndrome, I can put notes, I can be like, look into X, Y, and Z and set the date for 3 months' time. So it's out of my head, but it's there. And I'm not going to lose that idea. I'm just not going to deal with it right now. So again, that tech helps. What I would say in implementing tech, the biggest mistake that business owners make is this belief that throwing software at a problem solves it. So I think it's Bill Gates who said that when you apply software to a bad system, all you do is get a bigger problem faster. And that's a complete paraphrase of his wording, but that's the truth, is software is not going to fix a broken system. So you actually have to start offline and go through how you do things in your business and how you want to do things in your business and understand your workflows before you start applying tech to them, because there's amazing automations out there. And now that AI is coming into the picture, they're getting even better and even cleverer. And actually, I don't know much about it, but I know that you can use AI to help you with this concept of laying out how things work and how do they flow and what would be the best way of doing things. AI can actually help you logically create those workflows and tell you maybe where automation can come in and what it can do and what other programs can do. So that's where you have to start. You have to start by planning it. You can't just get ChatGPT and go, okay, run my business. Help me run my business. You've got to actually plan how you do things, because off the subject, we'll go back to the people topic quickly. But this is the mistake that I made in hiring. I think it's a common mistake in hiring, especially in my industry. We've got a very regulated, very distinct way of having to do things. Accounting is accounting. You do accounting the same way everywhere in the world. Slight differences for tax or personal preference, but the rules for accounting do not change. So the assumption in my head was, I need a bookkeeper. I hire a bookkeeper. I hand her a pile of work, and I'm going to get back what I would have produced. That's my assumption. And it was wrong. Because although our standard way of doing accounting is the same, the order that I do my work could be different. The way I interact with my clients is different. The way that I save files, the names that I give files when I save them so that I can find them again, the way I file actual physical documentation, which I don't do anymore, the way that I like to interact with my staff, the way that I save information in folders, all of that is mine. The outcome, the experience that my client has with us as an accounting firm is different to the experience that they have with the next accounting firm, despite the fact that in both firms, they're getting tax returns and reports and their accounting is done. Our focus in Farsight is solutions. So we want you to use those reports. Our focus is to sit with you and make sure, do you understand your reports? Do you understand your numbers? Are you aligning with your goals? Are you going where you want to? How can we help you? Are you making the maximum profit? Are you keeping the maximum amount of cash in your bank account? That is our focus. We have to do the same work as the next accounting firm whose maybe their focus is just to get your tax returns done, because that's just as important. It also has to get done. That's their focus. And if I hire a bookkeeper from that firm, they're going to focus on getting the tax right. That's not what I want them to focus on. We don't do tax. Well, we do, but I don't. So it's a different, and I think it's the same thing applies when you're now pulling in software, is yes, ChatGPT can probably tell you how to do a workflow, but will it do your workflow? It can tell you how to do a workflow for an engineering company, an architectural company, any business. It's got the entire internet's worth of knowledge to pull from. So if you tell it, I am a hair salon and I want to know the most efficient way to set up my schedule so that my hairdressers are not overworked, but they're well paid, it can do it. But will it do it the way you want it to? Will it give your clients the experience you want them to have? You have to think that through yourself before you start applying to it.
You've raised something really important there, Tamryn, that I talk about in our AI training and automation training, because it's human at the heart of everything, and being a human in the world of AI is the most important. So we have to work on our human skills, and part of that is really understanding, again, I share the same thing as you, is your system to be able to get there. And so every person is different and every person works differently. And especially when it comes to technology, people are never really shown how to use a device. It's just been put in front of them, and there's no instructions for running your business. There's no instructions for how you interact with technology. It's been used as a means to support the business, but there's no way of step by step on how to do it. But tech works off of systems. It works on a process. And so when it comes to implementing tech, you have to have the big picture. You have to have the people involved. You have to have the team talk about how they work, how they do things, why it is done in this way and not in that way, because maybe they've tried it before and it doesn't work, or the limitations of the tech doesn't allow them to do that. So maybe that tool isn't the right tool for them to use. So it goes back to that human part of it at all times. So what's interesting for me from what you said there, I was like, there's so much correlation there when it comes to technology, but also when it comes to every part of how your business is kind of set up and structured in some sort of way. Tamryn, I can see this conversation going on for hours, and I think we might need to do another session on it as well. But let's talk about, right, so we've got our pillars in place, okay? And we've got our tech, we've got our maybe people on board. What's next then to be able to help us feel like we're actually running a business and not being that kind of self-employed, burned out ex-employee, all of that stuff?
You see, the thing is, if you've done the purpose and the process pillar, and you've got those two, and you've actually really got them working. And when I say that, I don't mean they have to be perfect. I just mean they're working. Those two actually already, what they should do is mean that you're not doing things in your business anymore. Not unless you want to. You would have defined roles and responsibilities, and you would know what each role, so not what I do, what each role should be doing to get a specific outcome. When you've defined those and you define that as part of your process creation, and then you've brought in tech that will speed up certain parts of that or automate certain parts of that, then you know the bits that you have to fill with team members, which you've now done. You should have created a team that you are overseeing, not a business that you're working in. Technically, this is the perfect solution. This takes time. So it's not going to be that, oh, I built my pillars in 2 years, I've now got a business. You're gonna build and extract yourself piece by piece. That's basically what you're doing. Because right now you're holding that roof up because you're doing everything, or mostly everything. And often we hire someone because we're feeling overwhelmed and overworked, and then we throw a bunch of work at that person, and that will alleviate some of the pressure, especially if they're a good employee. But then you've still got that issue of, are they doing it my way? So then you're probably going to be fixing things, or they're constantly coming to you with questions about how to do something. So that's, you have to, it's not just about defining your process because you want it to be your way. It's also about defining the process so that you're not required for the process to happen every day. You need to actually have it written somewhere, and it doesn't have to be in an old manual. It can be online. There's amazing software out there right now. And so I did start with a written manual. It took me hours to type that thing, but we had a written manual. And my first employee was amazing, and she read it, she applied it. And my second one read it and she applied it. That's amazing. And as we went down the track, I got younger and younger employees, and younger employees really don't like to do a lot of reading. So I have now gotten to the point that our manual is actually an LMS system, and it's a mix of video and text and PDFs and all sorts of things. And it's basically a learning course that takes you through who we are, how do we do things, what is our purpose, what is driving us, what is our workflow, how do you do actually physically, step by step, how do you do your job for every single role in the company. It's taken me hours to do this. There is, by the way, now AI tech that will help you do it faster. But in fact, I think I heard about it on your podcast. Was
Penny Hopkinson. Yeah,
Yep,
she's
yep,
creating Manual Magic AI. So
amazing.
that tool is going to basically she started out working with franchises, but like Costa Coffee
Yeah.
and businesses like that, because it still has to have the same output no
Mm-hmm.
matter which business or which people are running that business. And it's the same for you, that's you want the same output for every client that you've got. So having her manual magic AI tool, I mean, it's going to
Exactly.
be wonderful, because we do create these LMSs and these recordings of what we do to be able to help
Mm-hmm.
support. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Create that bank.
I have to jump on. Sorry, I know we're going a little bit off topic, but Penny, because you said she works with franchises, and actually that's a really good example of why I push this so hard. So if you look at business failure statistics, 80% of small businesses will fail before year 5. That's a set thing. If you've managed to go past 5 years, well done. You're in less than 20% of the businesses that started 5 years ago. And yet, in the same time period, 5% of franchises fail. That is a very big difference. And the whole reason is that operating manual. A franchise is
Wow.
given an operating manual that tells every single person in the business what to do. If you apply from the owner all the way down to the burger flipper, McDonald's franchise manual has got instructions for how long the burger patty sits on the grill before it is turned over, and how long it sits on the other side before it is removed. That's how detailed the franchise manual is. And as a result, you can go anywhere in the world and get a McDonald's burger. I don't recommend doing so. They're not good for you. But they are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
And that it's because
Systems.
of that manual.
Yeah. I love the detail that we have to go into as part of it. And again, that's a skill. Being detail oriented is part of that. And I talk about just recording your screen and using a tool that will give you that step-by-step click on how you do things, and getting your team members to do that. That creates that first step of that guide to be able to do it. Okay, so Tamryn, you not only have your accounting business, your recruiting business, but you also have a team that are 100% remote.
Mhm.
How do people manage remote teams? And what are some best practices that they can put in place to manage remote working?
Very good question. So the first mistake people make with remote working is that they think, okay, if I get my team a laptop and I get cloud software, whatever it might be in whatever industry you are, that's it. They can do remotely. And they can, technically. The problem is, and it's going to go back to your process pillar, when you're in an office together, you learn things organically. So when a new person comes in, they're seated next to a current employee who's been there X amount of time, who was seated next to another employee when they arrived, who was seated next to another employee when they arrived. And so they watch how things are done and they learn how things are done from being in that environment. And of course, the manager can pop their head around the corner and say, how are you doing? Do you understand? Are you okay? How's that work? How far are you? Do you want help? Do you need this? Do you need that? The employee can get up and go and ask someone because everybody is there. You're often, especially if you're in an open office environment, you hear everyone's interactions. And so you learn how this company functions and what the culture is, how they approach clients, how they approach workflow. Everything is learned organically. And that's what causes remote work to fall flat when someone comes from an office environment and they're now doing things from home, and especially if they're a new employee doing things from home, there's no learning involved. There's no monitoring. There's no sticking your head around the corner to ask, how far is that? Have you finished that project? Are you okay? That doesn't happen anymore. It all breaks down. So to make remote work, you have to have your processes in place. And you actually have to have processes for monitoring and managing your employees, because it's both. You want to monitor the workflow, you want to manage your employees' engagement and happiness, because it's much harder to build rapport, to build any form of culture, any form of loyalty, any form of engagement when you're not sitting together. We're meant to be in community. We're very community-minded creatures. And I say this as someone who's so introverted that I could live alone for 5 years and not mind. But We are community orientated creatures. We like to be with people. We like to fit in. And that's easier in an office environment. And in fact, it is one of the challenges being faced by Gen Z at the moment, because they're coming into a world where remote work is normal. And Gen Z is correctly very focused on work-life balance and well-being. So they tend to ask for remote working or flexible working, and we give it to them because why not? But actually, they haven't learned how to be an employee. They don't understand work culture. They're coming from school, from varsity into an office. It's a very different environment. Suddenly they must just fit into office culture that they've never experienced. And they're doing it from home. So you actually have to have a system for monitoring people, for engaging people, for making sure that people meet up about work and about just getting to know each other. And that's how you have to actively build a remote culture. You can't let
I
it
talk
happen
about,
organically.
yeah, massively, because I talk about communication has to be even more important, and that interactive aspect of working with people you have to have the tools in place that you can communicate really effectively in the remote space if you have a remote team, which is really sometimes the best setup for somebody that is running a business, is to get somebody remotely to work. It's more cost effective usually for business owners to do that to start off with, because they don't need to hire premises, they don't need to set up all of the infrastructure that's required for having an in-person employee. So it is usually a first step I'm finding for business owners. But you need the infrastructure to support that, right? You need the tech
Yeah.
to support
Yeah.
that. So again, using tools like Asana, as you mentioned, there's other project management tools. We use one called Nifty, for example, that works exact same as Asana. And we can communicate back and forth on that tool. But it is so important to make sure that you are teaching your employees how it works in an online office environment rather than an offline office environment. It's very different. And there's a big change within demographics of that as well that you mentioned too. So a generation that are used to talking and getting an answer back from that talk, right? To then Gen Z that are used to texting and writing that response. So how can we then use a tool on our phones to maybe dictate the talking into a written format to then have the Gen Z write that back or do the same thing on their side? So we have to change, we have to adapt, we have to be flexible to be able to work with the new way of the working, which was all done post-pandemic as well, or during pandemic, which is now how we're working. Tamryn, I want to talk to you for hours on this kind of topic, and I think we should probably come back and do more on it. But there's a quiz that people can take to work out if you're burnt out. It's called are you burning out quiz, and I'll pop that link in the description and in the show notes. Anyone that's watching or listening can access that quiz, and I do recommend that you take it, because even just from listening, if you've recognized anything that Tamryn shared right at the beginning of the podcast, to go, hang on a minute, yeah, I'm maybe working a bit too much, I'm maybe not got my systems in place, or even as Tamryn shared things around the pillars that are set up, I would recommend that you go and take the quiz and then start to recognize those places in yourself. Yeah. You tell a little bit more about where's the next step after you taking the quiz, Tamryn, with you.
So yeah, if the quiz does come up with you on your way to burnout or you are burnt out, it also directs you to grab my free book, and it's free. It costs your email address. You can unsubscribe, but it's free otherwise. And I talk about my journey in that, and I give the physical steps for dealing with stress. I give some easy steps for dealing with time management, because like I said, it's a real problem. You can't pretend you don't have these deadlines. So I do give steps to start dealing with these things. Also, we wouldn't really get into this, but one of the first things I tell business owners to do if you're burnt out and battling is get rid of your toxic clients. So I walk you through that as well in the book. That's a subject for another day, but toxic clients will wreck you and your business. So But you're also just welcome. My Calendly link is on my LinkedIn. It's on the quiz. It's just about anywhere where you find my name. And you're very welcome to book a 30-minute chat with me. I'm always happy to talk burnout and burnout prevention. So, and no strings. I'm very happy to just give away my knowledge for free. I shouldn't say that out loud, but I am. So if you are burning out or you're feeling stretched too thin, then just give me a shout and we'll talk through it, and I can give you whatever tips I can give you, I will give you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today, Tamryn. And I would love for us to pick this back up again later on, and continue more of the conversation on how to not just get yourself sorted out, but get your business sorted out as the main.
It would be amazing. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Tamryn.
Fun.
Honestly, I could talk to you for hours for this. So let's do another chat soon, and we can continue it on. Okay, thanks everyone. Get your quiz in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Digital Dominators. I hope today's episode gave you something practical, or at least a bit of a boost to keep things going in this mad digital world. If you're enjoying the podcast, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up. There's loads more good stuff on the way and some brilliant guests lined up too. And if you fancy going a bit deeper, come and join the Digital Dominators community. It's totally free, and it's where I share bonus trainings, podcast extras, and tools to help you build confidence with your digital skills. You'll also get access to my social media prompt calendar, so you can finally stop staring at that blank screen wondering what to post. Just head to technologycoachingonline.com/digitaldominators to get started. Alright, that's it from me just now. Stay curious, keep showing up, and I'll catch you in the next